sorted out another big thing as well. There I was standing there in the church, and for the first time in my whole life I realised I totally and utterly loved one person. And it wasn't the person standing next to me in the veil, it's the person standing opposite me now. In the rain.
Is it still raining? I hadn't noticed.
This is the extratime.com Monday podcast. I'm Oisin Langan. I appreciate that might seem like an odd clip to start a sports podcast with, but it will make sense once you hear the interview with Shamrock Rovers' Stephen Bradley. He is the Hoops head coach. He has just led them to a second title in a row and a 19th overall for Rovers. Of course, if you're in any way into League of Ireland football, you'll already know all that. We'll also hear from Graham Burke. As well as that, Owen Heary chats to us. Now, when I lined up Owen, I thought we'd talk more about what was going on at the moment, but actually we got into some of the really cool old stuff about him playing for Kilkenny, him playing for Home Farm, the great days at Shelbourne, and the fight at half-time in the dressing room when they were 2-0 down to Lille. He'll talk to us about that and a whole lot more. Owen Heary, really good guy. We're delighted to have him on the show. We'll also have Tom O'Connor's roundup of the Irish in the UK and abroad. Leanne Kernan had a good weekend. Oma Daly had a good weekend. They weren't the only ones. And we'll hear more about that. As well as all that, we'll hear from Dundalk manager Vinny Perth and Waterford boss Marc Bircham. Waterford playing tomorrow, if you're listening on Monday, instead of tonight because of an electrical fault at the RSC. We'll get into that in a while. Both men were speaking to Aoife Mullen. Let's start though with Shamrock Rovers, who are the league champions. Oh, by the way, we'll have GA as well. A special mention for Niall McNamee, the man who doesn't age. He scored a goal for Road in the dying seconds to get a draw in the Offaly County final. And Padraig Pearses won the Roscommon Senior Football title. Congratulations to them. Kilmacud Crokes, they're through to the go-ahead Dublin Senior Hurling Championship final by beating Cuala, the champions, yesterday in Parnell Park. After that game, we spoke to Fergal Whitely, and we'll play that a little bit later on. They'll play Nafina in the final. Nafina are interesting. Huge club, obviously. They've had success at senior grade in football in the past, but they've never even been to a senior hurling final up to this year. They've got to quarterfinals, they've got to semi-finals, they've had underage success, they've won trophies at the age grades, but the accusation was kind of thrown at them in the last while. Well, you can't really do it at senior. Maybe you're a bit soft. Well, they're not soft. And I've seen that with my own two eyes this season. Liam Rush has been a real addition, but Paul O'D is immense for them. Shane Barrett is a battler. AJ Murphy, they've got so many good players. Anyway, we'll talk more about hurling in a little bit of a while. First though, it is Graham Burke of Shamrock Rovers on a second title in a row and what it means to him and his team and his teammates. But first, let's hear from the head coach, Stephen Bradley. Stephen Bradley, Shamrock Rovers head coach. You're champions. How does that feel?
Brilliant. It's what we've worked for all year. It's our aim at the start of the year was to retain our title. You can win a league, a good team wins a league, but in my opinion a great team wins it back to back, because it's the second one is always harder. Everyone always changes their game plan, everyone always digs in, and you need that little bit of hunger to go again, and the players have done that this year.
And you did it with fans around this time. It was something special tonight, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've called for the fans to come out tonight in their numbers, and thankfully they came out like they always do. Yeah, they were incredible again. And it's brilliant that we've got to experience that with them tonight on the pitch, because nights like that live long in the memory, and there's something I'll never forget, and I'm sure the players won't.
What's the most satisfactory element from your point of view, or is that something that you'll have to sit and think about? Or does Stephen Bradley sit and think and reflect, or do you immediately think, now I have to win 3 in a row?
That has to be our aim. We have to enjoy tonight. And enjoy the next few weeks.
How important is it, by the way, that you do take time to enjoy it? Because it's a tremendous achievement.
Yeah, it's really important. It's really important. I've had a lot of people from the football world text me. Stephen Kenny texted me today and said, make sure you enjoy it. They're special evenings. And he's right. You need to enjoy this because you work so hard from January to get to this point. But as soon as we do that, we need to focus on retaining this next year.
Yeah, and that's the nature of football. But will you take a night out with it? How will you actually reflect? How will you actually celebrate? Because tonight is reactionary and you still have business to do, but will you do something special to mark this? Yeah,
we will. We'll definitely mark it as a club. I'm sure we'll have a dinner and a few drinks and a nice evening together with the members, with the board, and obviously with our friends and families, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. And it's about taking it all in then at the end of the season and really really enjoying it for that night.
As the manager, what's the most satisfactory element of this title win for you? And it mightn't even be something obvious. It might be something small that we don't even think about as fans or media.
No, just the group, just the togetherness of the group. Because to win leagues and to retain leagues, you need to be together as a group. Because you're going to have your ups and downs. Everyone's talking on the outside. Everyone wants to have shots at you, and that's fine. That's what, when you're at the top, that's what happens. But it's about that togetherness. It's not letting anything in the dressing room. It's really staying together, and the players have done that. And to a man, they've stood up and they've got the rewards.
And like, to do that, you had to keep the team and squad together. And from the outside, we might look and say, God, they're so talented. They've all the advantages. But actually, inside, you have to try and manage that. And guys aren't very understanding. If they're not playing, they want to play, and that can create tension. Whatever. You have to manage all that. So I imagine you're very satisfied that somehow you managed to balance all that.
Yeah, a lot of credit goes to Steve McPhail, Glenn Cronin, the staff, because they play a big part in that and allow me to focus on the games in hand. And I think our players are a really good group of players. And if you treat them with respect and honesty, they're usually very good. Sometimes they're not happy, very happy. Obviously, they want to play every minute of every game. But I think, like I said, if you treat them with respect and honesty, they're okay.
You mentioned Stephen Kenny there. I think you're doing something that he did, and that's if someone is good enough, they're old enough, regardless of age, and that creates competition in the group. It sends out the right message. It's easy when I say it like that, isn't it? But it's maybe a hard thing to actually do, because always at managers, I think maybe you're tempted to go with the experienced guy, go with the older guy. Yeah. But you didn't do that at times this season. No,
I think we have a real blend of experience and youth. We've got a really good blend, and we've invested a lot of money into our academy, and I think I've given 23 debuts since I've been here from the academy, and I think that gets overlooked. We saw more players from the academy than any other club in the country. So I think we got to understand that we've had this academy, and when the players are good enough, their age won't come into it. When they're good enough, they'll play. Gavin played at 16, Oidemo 17, Conan 17. You can go back and go through them all. And it's really important that our young players see a pathway, if they're good enough, obviously. But then it's an experience, and when they come in, that our experienced players really hold them to account and our standards, and don't let them off in any way,
Listen, I'll let you go off and celebrate, because it's bucketing down with rain. I'm not sure if you're a Notting Hill fan. Is it Sorry, 4 weddings and a funeral. Is it raining? I hardly noticed. Is that what you're thinking now? You don't care about the rain?
No, I don't care. No.
Are you 4 weddings and a funeral?
Yeah, I know it. Yeah,
you did? You get it? Wow. And people say you're no crack. I don't get that.
Stephen,
well done. That's what they say. That's not what I say. Well done. Well done. Graham Burke, champions once again. Congratulations. How are you feeling?
Yeah, brilliant. It's a great emotion. It's a really, really great feeling. Being able to celebrate in front of the fans and the family and everybody there, so it's an unbelievable feeling, different feeling towards last year, not having the fans and things like that, so it's a really, good.
Talk to me about the fans at the end when the final whistle blew, because as you said, that's not a moment you got last year, so yeah. Was it completely different? Did it feel like winning it for the first time again? How did it feel?
Yeah, completely different, Obviously we didn't have that last year. We just lifted a trophy in front of an empty stadium sort of way, But yeah, the crowd come on, obviously they're enjoying it, they want to go on with the team and celebrate it with the team and everything like that. So, we went over, got the baby and bring her into the mix.
A big hug from the manager as well.
Yeah, and went over and tried to share the moment with the partner and the child, so yeah, it was a bit hectic, they're all coming around, photos and everything like that, but brilliant moment for them, they want to enjoy it with the lads, and the lads want to enjoy it with them, and we'll celebrate with them.
How old is the child? How old is your baby?
2 in December.
Okay.
So yeah, she wouldn't have known anything about the last one, so she knows a little bit more, so yeah, I wanted to try and savour that little moment with her.
And is it different celebrating as a dad? Is the motivation even during the season a bit different? Does it change things?
I think it does, because you have a different meaning of playing for someone, that way, every day, every week, to have her here, you look in the stands and say, I want to put in a shift for her, and run that extra little yard and try putting in a performance for her, to look back and try in them times, have them moments to say, oh, remember that, so it was great to have her here.
And is that in some ways a feeling that takes the pressure off you, because footballers generally, I'm about to make a comment which I have nothing to back up, but yeah. the cliched view is footballers kind of play for themselves, but that's not the case for you. You're playing for something more than yourself now.
Yeah, I obviously have a lot of family here, and I'm obviously not too far from here, you know. I have a lot of family that are up there, you know what I mean, watching me, coming out to support me and all, you know. So you want to make them all proud, you know, and there's no prouder moment than, you know, winning things and then being able to celebrate that moment with them, you know. And I'll go home tomorrow. She'll probably be asleep by the time I go home, and, you know, I'll enjoy the day where you know, and we'll celebrate, and we maybe look back on it in the telly, you know, and show her this, daddy, and that, you know. So, but unbelievable moment, and I'm proud to end up winning a back-to-back. But you know what I mean, we'll go and attack next season again.
Yeah, and the fact that you have done a back-to-back, is that extra satisfactory? Is that a way for you to say, well, you know what, doubters, we've proved you wrong? Or did you even consider the doubters? Was it all about what you felt about yourselves in your group, and whatever happened outside, whatever was said outside didn't matter, wasn't relevant?
Yeah, you don't listen to noise outside, you know what I mean? People are probably just jealous. I know Hogan says, it was only an 18-game season, but it's really irrelevant to us. We don't really care what anybody says. So our mind, we've won it, and then obviously we went down and proved it this year, you know. I don't know, 16 points or something like that. We'd probably end up winning a bye, but still obviously points to play for. But we show how dominant we are and the team that we have. And, you know, you look at the bench now and you look at the lads that started against Longford and that, you know, there's a lot of ability in this squad to go on and try and win as many titles as they possibly can.
And that's the thing as well, unlike League of Ireland in previous years, there's a basis to go on and dominate. There's no guarantees because that's the nature of football, but there's a lot of guys who'll be here next season. You've got great facilities, you've got great management. It's set up.
Yeah, I think obviously it's a place to be, isn't it, in Ireland, you know, the training ground, you know, the best stadium here at Cuala, you know, and the players that we have, and, you know, as long as we keep the hunger and keep the team together, you know what I mean, we'll be attacking every season to win everything that we possibly can. You know, obviously we have to keep that mentality of wanting to be the best and having that to drive us on. So we'll do that, and long may it last. And that's the thing, you know what I mean. You have to, I think, at a club like this, kind of dominate things.
And finally, is it the younger players who are driving it, or is it the older players who are driving it? Because I said it to Stephen that it doesn't seem to matter how old a guy is. If he's good enough, he'll get the chance, and maybe that keeps the older players on the toes, and maybe the older players then keep the younger players on the toes because they have to set the standard. What way does it work in this group?
Yeah, I think if you want to have that winner's mentality, you know, everybody needs to be right at it, you know, to know that this younger lad is here, no matter what, like, the manager doesn't care, he's going to throw him in if I'm not sort of performing. But there's a lot of big characters in that change room, whether they're older or younger. It doesn't really matter, you know. We all speak and we all drive everything on. If there's anything we don't like, we'll nip her in the bud and things like that, you know. And that's the way the group is, because there's a lot of people in that changing room that has won leagues before they've even come to Rovers, you know what I mean, won 5, 6 leagues and things like that. So they know the standards that has to be set.
Republic of Ireland international Graham Burke on Shamrock Rovers league title win. Congratulations to them. Stephen Bradley before him. Stephen Bradley, I have to say, is a guy I have an awful lot of time for. You don't get to know managers outside of the post-match interview kind of setting when you work in media or cover games. But he's a guy I get a good sense of, and obviously he is very good at his job. And there was times in the past when he was questioned by Rovers fans, but look, I think he's proved them wrong. Patience has been the key for Rovers, and they've been rewarded for their patience. Bradley has done a good job. Tonight, that's if you're listening on Monday, there are some big games. St. Pat's taking on Bohemians at 7:45. Sligo Rovers hosting Longford Town, and Finn Harps taking on Drogheda. I spoke to Ollie Horgan after the game on Friday night, and he quite simply said, look, if we play anything like we did tonight on Monday, we're going to lose. We need a massive improvement. And I have to say, I agree with him. Drogheda with a good win on Friday night. They're one of those teams who are kind of in the relegation, promotion, playoff spot discussion, but they're also kind of in the European discussion. The same as Dundalk, who played Drogheda on Thursday night. So it's a very busy week for Drogheda, who have an awful lot of games in a short space of time. Let's just take a quick look at the table to remind ourselves of how tight everything is. Longford are bottom, they're gone. Finn Harps 9th on 38 points. That's the relegation promotion playoff spot, 9th place. They're 1 point behind Waterford, who play tomorrow night. That's Tuesday night against Derry. That game postponed because of the electrical problem at the RSC. Dundalk on 42 points, 3 points clear of Waterford following their win against the Blues on Friday night. They're on 42 points, so they're 7th. They're only 4 points ahead of Finn Harps, but they're only 4 points behind Derry City, who are in 4th position. It's an amazingly tight league. A win for Drogheda tonight, for example, could launch them into the European spots. In fact, if Bows were to lose against Pats and Drogheda were to win tonight, they'd be on 46 points, and that's the same amount of points as Derry, who play tomorrow night against Waterford. That's a game, by the way, that Extra Time will be at. I'll be there doing the video updates on the Twitter page. That's at Extra Time News. And also you'll be able to follow the game. There'll be a blog on extratime.com. Right, we've heard from Shamrock Rovers, Stephen Bradley and Graham Burke. They were in absolutely joyous moods on Friday night after their game. No wonder, of course, they captured the league title. But how were Marc Bircham of Waterford and Vinny Perth of Dundalk? Well, let's find out. They both spoke to Aoife Mullen following Dundalk's 1-0 win against the Blues. Bircham, as always, is interesting for his accent alone, which I love. But Vinny Perth doesn't just talk about the game. He kind of goes into it a bit about social media. So it's worth paying attention to.
Vinny Perth, Dundalk manager, great result tonight. I suppose the slenderest of margins, 1-0 win, but massive 3 points. I suppose it could have been more, and possibly, truth be told, should have been more.
Yeah, it should have been. I mean, it's very hard to be critical of Pat Hoban because he's been outstanding for us in the last 2 months, but he's not able to train at the moment to the full of his ability. So it just shows you, even at this end of the season, if you're not finding your rhythm of hitting the net, shooting drills in and around the goal, and to be fair to their keeper, made some outstanding saves. But at the same time, then we needed our own keeper to make one outstanding save. But look, very proud of the players tonight. I thought that was people think Dundalk won 5-0 here every week for the last 8 or 9 years, and King Kenny's teams won all of these goals. I've been here, we don't, and that's quite often happens. Difference is tonight we probably didn't take the second, and I think if we took the second goal we would have went down comfortable.
Too often this season there was a lot of discussion about referees. Maybe they dominated post-match interviews and their performances, but I think tonight some of the performances on the pitch by the players were fantastic. We mentioned Peter Cherry. Michael Duffy was ever the professional. Cameron Dummigan, when he came on for Greg Sloggett, played really well as well. You must be very pleased with that. Yeah,
I think our starting 11 tonight, for argument's sake, if we were going for a league title, I've been involved with 5 league titles in this club. I think it's 5, yes. And that starting 11 tonight would be comfortable going into it against anybody in the last 8 years. It is an outstanding starting 11. So we've got really good players at the club. We haven't had a good environment for them to allow them win trophies. But you look at Daniel Kelly, again, he's been so unlucky with injuries this year. He got injured he got himself fit just before the Derry game and back end of Europe, and got himself injured up in Derry. Came back, played against Waterford, and really serious ankle injury where he went over on a divot on the grass pitch. So we've been really unlucky, and we've missed a lot of players. But again, it's easy to say this is a relegation battle or is it an opportunity to get into Europe. It depends on your outlook on life, and I think
and that's the way you have to look at it. Really, you have to be optimistic, because as you said, you could look at it either way. 4 points off 4th place is huge and must give you a boost, especially going into a Louth derby next.
Yeah, well, we've got league winners in our dressing room. Almost all of the players tonight have won a league medal that started. And we've got people like David on the bench who's won league medals, obviously, and Brian Gartland is injured, and Patrick McElhenney. So we've got league winners around here. But look, we've got to drive to the next level and keep improving. And somebody asked me, was it all about getting the result tonight? No, it wasn't. It was about getting our fullbacks. It was about that great chance Daniel Kelly had where we countered attack with real speed and power, and Michael Duffy, Sean Murray arriving in the box, and Daniel Kelly arriving in the box. That's what Dundalk has been about for the last 8 or 9 years. We've seen glimpses of it this year, particularly in Europe. I think we've played 5 home games with fans, and we've won the 5 games. So together with fans and the players we have on the pitch, we can be as good as anybody.
And it might be a cliche, or it might sound a cliche to say that the fans play a big part, but they definitely did. And I know you spoke about the fans earlier in the week in the media and the importance and their role, I suppose, in the match and in the performance. It was nice to see the team come over to the shed side at the end of the game and, you know, clap in front of the fans. The fans really made their voices heard tonight, and it was possibly quite poignant seeing that Michael Duffy won't be here next season. And I know you spoke on the Extra Time podcast with Oisin earlier this week, and you spoke about his performance, which we saw again tonight, that he is that professional. He leaves it all on the pitch. The players left it all on the pitch. You couldn't have asked for any more of them, but you couldn't have asked for any more from the fans either. And just, I suppose, throughout the course of the night, they did make their voice heard with regard to the future of the club and ownership. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, Michael Duffy is the most outstanding person you'll ever meet, okay, on and off the pitch.
I probably shouldn't single him out because there's so many characters there, but there's just one example.
Just a brilliant person. So I had no fear 6 weeks ago when he was announced. I had no fear that Michael wouldn't do everything he needed to be. The players gave the fans a standing ovation tonight because that's how good they were. It normally the other way around, but they gave the Shedside Army a standing ovation. And in terms of the future of the club, I think this club needs the community element to it. I think that needs to be put back into the club. I do believe there's elements still there, and people talk about we've lost connection with the community. I know myself, and I think Burns, Eilish, Kelly, so many people do so much for the community that people don't see, and it's been difficult. But I think we need I've pleaded with the owners to keep the community as best they can in and around this football club, and that link we have with so many people in the community is huge for us. It's
that bond and that relationship is really crucial. I mean, even when you look around the stadium and you see different generations, grandfathers bringing their grandchildren to the game, and I know myself from teaching locally that when the team come or when players come or when you come to the school, it just means so much to the young people of the town. Yeah, but people make out that we don't go to the schools, or just because Peak Six come we don't go. No, that's not true, and Peak Six do encourage people to do community stuff. COVID has made it difficult, and all the noise then adds to that. But look, I think we've got good people associated with our club. We've lost a lot of good people. A lot of good people, Martin Conley, Colin Murphy, I'll leave some out, David Caldwell, people, really good people. And we need people like that in and around the club as best we can. So therefore, no matter what happens next year, there's no done deals done yet, as far as I know, as far as I've been told. So hopefully, whoever's in charge of the club next year does reconnect with the community. But understand there is a connection there still. That will never be lost. Well, Dundalk is a footballing town, so I suppose players, yourself, performances like that and the spirit you've shown tonight, that keeps that tradition alive. Yeah,
I go back to the 5 games with fans together with the players have won 5 games. We've missed them. We missed them. We need them to continue to support the club. One local newspaper said our budget this year was 4 million on the playing staff, and the only 2 players signed were Andy Boyle and Greg Sloggett. They're just 2 examples of just factually incorrect information. Our budget is nowhere near 2 million. It's minimum less than half of that. So we're in this world where false news travels so quickly all around the world, and then the real news eventually gets out and the truth gets out a little bit longer than that. So, and
that must be hard from your point of view. It's difficult when that's all going on in the background. There are so many challenges this season. There's a gauntlet of emotions that you've been through with regard to
genuinely
results.
The last 2 weeks have been the most difficult in my life from my personal point of view. It's really, really difficult. We live in a world now where it's difficult to live and to work in this environment. You look at Steve Bruce's comments, you look at the way Mayo GEA have been targeted. You look at most people in any, I don't want to say I'm in the spotlight, but you are in this football world. Most people in this spotlight now are saying your positions are becoming untenable with the amount of attention to detail. I had lunch with 2 friends of mine today in town, 2 business friends, and I believe people were saying I was meeting owners and different things. It's a bizarre world we live in now.
It's intrusion in your personal life, and I'm intruding on your time now, so thanks for taking the time.
Just to finish on that, remember the greatest manager Dundalk ever had, we can discuss whether it was Jim McLaughlin or Stephen Kenny. I was assistant manager, and Cork beat us here 3-0 in 2017, went 19 points ahead of us. Social media was in its infancy only back then in 2017. There was no noise around the club, there was no hammering of managers or slagging off of players, and we rebuilt the club in 2018 and won a double. Yes, Stephen was a genius of a manager and he was given time, of course, but just shows you the different world we live in now. It's really difficult to work in this environment. It is really, really difficult. So
it's a huge pressure.
Yeah.
On top of what's going on in the background, on top of all the injury concerns you had this season, that is an added pressure, and as you say, it's a different world. But thanks to social media, this is going out as a podcast and people will listen to it. So thanks very much.
It's brilliant. Yeah. It's actually brilliant in the right hands and in the right people manage it. But some of the stuff is difficult. Of that, there's no doubt.
I'm joined now by Marc Bircham, Waterford boss. 1-0, a disappointing result for you tonight, but that goal, I suppose, came just before half time, and up until then it looked like you were quite evenly matched. What's your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, definitely. It was going to plan for us. We wanted to. I thought we was controlling the game. They got in a couple of times with probably a bad back four line. We weren't dropping, and they just a ball over the top. I think we eliminated that, and we thought out of the two teams we was looking the most composed and was looking the team that was controlling the game. Our forward players, Junior, Phoenix, were getting into the game. We looked comfortable. There was an injury. We managed to talk to the players, get through to half time, concentrate, and then it was a really sloppy goal to give away. Poor kick by Paul Martin, the goalie. Poor defending by Jack, and probably Paul shouldn't come out there. He was on the corner of the box. He committed himself and they scored a goal. But fair play to Paul Martin, the goalie. He's been injured with a broken foot. He's hardly trained, and he's made 2 or 3 great saves in the second half to help his teammates out. And again, another incident. Junior misses the 1-on-1. Great save by their keeper, but I think he should hit it low. If we get that and make it 1-1, it'll be a completely different game. With this team, what they do, the lads have got a great attitude. They literally can't wait for the next game every time there is a little bit of a setback. So hopefully we can...
That's all you can ask for as a manager.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So whether we're playing up in Belfast, whether we're playing at Cuala, or if they stick us down in Cork for this neutral game, we're turning up and we're playing to our best ability. But it's just, I'm just disappointed if it does happen. I'm disappointed for the players for all they've been through for their COVID situation. I'm mainly disappointed for the fans. They've been dying to watch us play football. They've always... Our home advantage, it would kill us for our home advantage in the relegation battle. But look, we come back from adversity and we'll do it again.
You sure do. Well, best of luck for the rest of the season. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is the extratime.com Monday podcast, and that was Marc Bircham, the Waterford manager. There's just something very likeable about him, isn't there? He's also obviously quite a decent manager. Look at the brilliant job he has done at the Blues. Coming up a little bit later, we'll hear from Tom O'Connor of extratime.com. He'll give us the roundup of the Irish in the UK and beyond. We'll also hear from Kilmacud Crokes hurler Fergal Whitely on reaching a go-ahead Dublin Senior Hurling Championship final. Now though, it is Owen Heary, formerly of Home Farm, formerly of Shelbourne, formerly of Kilkenny, formerly of Bows. He's also managed Bows, Sligo and Shells. We'll talk to him about a whole bunch of stuff over the next while, including the best players he's ever played with, the fight at half-time in the European game against Lille, how maybe Shelbourne set a standard with what they did in that European run, and how maybe only now that standard is kind of being met again, but in a different sort of way. That point maybe I butchered there, but hopefully you'll understand what I mean when you hear the interview itself. Anyway, we are now joined by Owen Heary. This is one of these times where I intro it like it's live, but you all know I recorded it, so let's all pretend. Owen, how are you?
I'm not too bad, Oisin. Thanks for asking.
Good. We were eager to speak to you because you've kind of done a bit of everything in the League of Ireland. You've been at big clubs and won things. You've been at small clubs, and I suppose you know the struggle that they have, the likes of Kilkenny City, who sadly are no longer with us, and Home Farm, who sadly are no longer in the League of Ireland, although they are very strong as a football entity. So I'm always kind of curious to get the views of people like yourself who've seen the game from a couple of different sides. How would you describe your relationship with football right now, though?
Well, obviously, I'm not involved in the league at the moment. I'm actually enjoying watching the league, watching the games. And there's one thing I said over the years, when you've played in it and when you've managed in it, it takes up and consumes a lot of your life. Now I've taken a back seat and I've just really enjoyed watching games or listening to games or, results, watching the results along the way. And it's much more enjoyable. I have to say, it's, as I said, there's 20 odd years involved in it. Started at 16, finished playing at 37, involved in the management then for a few years. So it's nice to take a back seat, take a break. And as I said, I'm enjoying that side of the game now.
You played in the League of Ireland from 1993 to 2013. Now that's a hell of a time span. So much changed in that time. I'd say it was like a different sport nearly from when you started playing in the League of Ireland to when you finished playing in the League of Ireland?
Yeah, completely different. I remember as a 16-year-old going down to Kilkenny City, and we John Cleary was manager, brought me down, and I'm sitting in the dressing room, and you had John Cleary putting in a gum shield to play, and Jimmy Donnelly taking out his teeth, false teeth, and you're looking at players and saying, my God, what am I getting into here? And it was a real man's league, and that was the first division. It was a real, players were going out for battle. It wasn't a case of going out to, tap the ball around and enjoy it. You'll have your muddy pitches, and it was just a case of rolling up the sleeves and getting stuck in and trying to grind out a result. And at 16, you learned a lot, especially with the lads that I played with over the years, like, Peter Eccles at Home Farm, John Cody, all really, really experienced League of Ireland players, and players that played at a high level, international players, played in England, so it was a good learning curve for me at the start, obviously, as a 16-year-old. And then as I progressed on, you come into a Shells team where you have really cultured players, Pat Fenlon, Tony Sheridan, Stephen Gagan, and then you sort of have the experience then to pass on to players as you progress along the way, into young Keith Buckley and Lopez. Hopefully I passed on my experiences that I've learned over the years and passed it on to them, and they're reaping a few of the rewards now as well from it.
What was Buckley Park like to play in? Sadly, a venue that's now lost to the League of Ireland.
Yeah, it was a huge park. It was one of the biggest pitches I've played on, to be honest. And we would meet at the West County, a lot of Dublin lads, and onto the minibus and drive down, stop at Kilford Arms, have our tea and toast before as a pre-match meal, and then play the game. And as I said, it was a lovely park for me. Like, I used to play in the 15 acres in the Phoenix Park, so it was a completely different atmosphere and different setup, but really professional at the time from where I came from. So, an enjoyable stint that I have. The one season there, the following season, then the chairman wanted a lot of local players and was letting all the Dublin lads go, and he asked me to stay, but I was 16 years of age, I wasn't driving, so I had no way of getting down to Kilkenny every week to play matches. So I ended up moving then to Home Farm and Home Farm Everton. I was obviously doing the FOSS course up there with Liam Toohey, and Liam Toohey asked me to sign for Home Farm from there.
And you spent 4 seasons there. That's kind of where you became a man in a footballing sense, I guess. Yeah,
it was. You'd get it was, I suppose, with Home Farm, you'd have a lot of managers that would come and watch the game as well, and we play on a Sunday or a Saturday, and you'd have managers from other League of Ireland teams coming down. You'd have experienced players. I said John Cody was there, and Peter Eccles there, and Dermot Keeley became manager. With Liam Toohey that managed for a while, Martin Bailey. So good experience, good learning curve. We got promoted one season, got relegated, and we won the First Division Shield. So it was my first trophy that I won. I got the taste of it, and for, as you say, 4 years of playing. Well, 3 of them playing First Division football, and one of them in the Premier. It sort of put you in good stead, because you knew what it took. To play in the First Division, it was more of a battle, as I said, and then playing that 1 year in the Premier Division gave me the hunger to try push on and get back into the Premier and play longer there.
Dermot Keeley, do you think every player kind of needed the apprenticeship of being managed by him at some stage of their career?
Without a doubt, probably the best manager I've played under, himself and Pat Fenlon. But Dermot, you wanted to play for Dermot. You wanted to impress him. Like, I remember before he came to Home Farm, he asked me to sign for Finn Harps, and I turned him down. And then when he came into Home Farm, I was like, oh, that's probably me gone now for turning him down. But absolutely brilliant for me. He was. He showed you how to defend. He made sure you were at it every game, and he was tactically aware. Like, he wasn't a manager that just went out and said, do this, do that. Like, he knew what the opposition was about. He knew how to get the best out of yourselves to beat the opposition, knew their strengths, weaknesses, and he wasn't afraid to let people know. I mean, he brought Steve Archibald in, and Steve Archibald wasn't doing it, and he took him out at half time and basically sent him back home to England. So, he was well able to do things and get his point across straight away.
Do you think people like him kind of built foundations for what's happening now? So what I mean there is maybe players now get a bit more respect for playing in the League of Ireland, and people kind of look at it now as an actual proper footballing entity. Whereas it always was to someone like Dermot Keely. Like he never accepted that it was like he never accepted people looking down on it. He never accepted the snobbery towards it. And the players of this generation are kind of benefiting from that, because it was his, I suppose, bloody mindedness that kept it going for a long time, because Lord knows there was enough happened to undermine it. We needed strong people like him.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think he done a lot for the league as a player and as a manager. Himself, Pat Dolan being another one that, either you like him, you love him, you don't. He's still done a lot for the league. Ollie Bourne. There was big characters back then that pushed the league forward. They didn't allow it to other people to I suppose, say bad things we want about the league. They would always stand up for the league. They'll always be in the papers, promoting the league when other people were sort of putting on the back burner. They were always the head to show things. But he also, European games, that I think that was the big turning point as well, is that we were going into European games and teams were losing all the time. And I think Pat's lost the game 10-0 over the course of the 2 games, and it didn't look great. What Pat Dolan turned around, they went and played Celtic, got good results. Shells with them and went played Rangers, got good results. And people started taking notice then of the league progressing a little bit. And, Dermot brought us up. We went over and played the team in Macedonia and beat them and moved on to the next game. So I think when people start seeing positive results in Europe and, league results, good battles in the league for first and second place, even the lower teams always were strong. It sort of gave us more emphasis on the league, to push it forward. And I think that has been done over the years. And then other managers have come along, Michael O'Neill, Pat Fenlon, Stephen Kenny, they've took it on to another level. And now you see European results really paying dividends. But you also see the standard of the football being good in the league. And we just need, I suppose, the stadiums to be built up, and, more people are interested in the league.
You had some glory days with Shelbourne in Europe. Are those your favourite days from your career, or is it something else? Is there kind of other wins and other memories that you have that are maybe less obvious to us, but you cherish them?
I suppose, like me as a defender, I think the things that always stand out for me was either a clearance off a line or, making that tackle, that last-ditch tackle to get us a result and things like that. So things like that always stand out as a defender. Even I remember Steve Williams making a fantastic save against Cork that kept us in the league and kept us on top of the league, and we went on to win it. Little things like that. But I suppose my first double at Shells and my first double at Bows really stand out to me. When I first won the double at Shells, my first league medal, and I'm looking at Mick Neville, who's won 5 or 6 at that stage, and and then Paul Doolan the same. You're like, my God, what a career they've had. I'd love to get near that. And then all of a sudden you start winning a few. And when I went to Bows, I was hitting my 30s, or late, or hitting my early 30s to say, and you still want to win something for the club that you supported as a boy. And obviously when I went to Bows, you'd had a few people question saying, I was past it, but then to go on and do a double again and to win another league, another 5 trophies at Bows was great for me, especially, as I said, I follow Bows and I'm from the area. It was fantastic for me to win something there. And those two stand out, especially the Bows one, where people didn't rate us as a good team as such at the start of the season, especially Pats beat us 1-0 in the second game, and everyone thought, well, that's it, Bows won't be in the running for the league, and we won it by 19 points in the end. So it really stands out for me that year. And obviously my first league medal and double at Shells.
And were you always the driven, determined guy in the group, the Roy Keane, if you want, or were you kind of relaxed and joking, kind of arm around the shoulder guy? What kind of player was Owen Heary in that time at Shelbourne and Bows when you had an awful lot of success?
I just think that I always gave 100%. I was determined to win things and make sure things are done properly, and that was the same with training. I'm sure if you spoke to any of my teammates, they would say I trained the way I played, and that was one thing that I always, had in myself, that I didn't like losing training games. I didn't like going into training, and if training wasn't done properly, it'd play on my mind. So I was one of more determined to lead by example. And if I led by example, then other players, couldn't question me, and they always stepped up to the mark as well. And sometimes I'd have an off day, and you'd have players, I suppose, picking up the mantle and taking it on from there. And if they were having an off day, I'd do it for them. I often say, like, if a player's having a bad day, I wouldn't go around criticising them. I'd be one that go over and try pick them up, say, come on, you can do better. If there was a player that wasn't work hard enough, I'd have a pop at them. So I suppose you'd have to mix and match it. But I think the one thing is, I always trained the way I played, and I always played, gave 100%, and anyone that played alongside me done the same. And once we gave that, if we got the result, well and good. But if you didn't get the result, you can't fault your efforts that you put in.
Were you to be feared in the dressing room by your teammates if they weren't putting it in, if things weren't going well? You
might have to ask them. I've probably had more fights with my own teammates over the years than anyone else, and that's been true. But I mean, in training matches, I think I've had fights with Jamie Harris, David Crawley, Jay Bourne. They'd probably tell you Dave Rogers. All over the years, I've definitely had rows in the dressing rooms, more with my own players, and that's because of the standard that we all set. I can picture, there's one in my head that stands out where we're 2-0 down against Lille in the European Cup in Lansdowne, and at half time, I think there was probably myself and Joseph having a row. There was Jamie Harris and Dave Rogers having a row, and Pat Fenlon was suspended. It was in the stand. The security had to come in and break us all up, and yet we went out, and Glenn Fitz scores 2 goals, and we get back to 2-2. So sometimes a row is good. As long as it's left in the dressing room and that's it. There's no hard feelings after the match, or we don't continue on. I think the players that we played with knew sometimes a row was to get us going, and it had to be done, and we done it because our standards were so high as a team and as players that we just needed to get going at some point. So something like that normally kicked us on, should I say.
That's really, I had no idea that happened. I was at that game, and I remember the turnaround. I remember Glenn Fitzpatrick's 2 goals. And I remember, now that you mention it, Pat Fenlon being suspended. Did Eamon Collins, who was his number 2 at the time, get any level of tactical instruction to you at half time? Or did you just go in, fight for 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was, and get back out on the park and just play better in the second half? How did that work?
Well, to be honest, Eamon was on the phone to Pat trying to get the instructions, and I think then all of a sudden he's Rod and Pat, they're killing each other here. And as I said, the big Derek McGuinness, I don't know if you know him, was the security in the Irish team. Yeah, he had to come in and drag people apart. And if Derek dragged you apart, he knew you were getting thrown over from one side of the room to the other. But as I said, the sport is on. It was we went out in that game and we didn't play well in the first half, and we sort of having a pop at each other for it. And as I said, the row really kicked us on. The second half we went out, and Glenn Fitz scores 2 goals. So it really done something for us. I don't know whether we were annoyed at each other or what it was, but when we went out in the second half, we played a lot better, and we were getting forced to the second ball and putting in proper tackles, and sort of as I said, we got a draw out of it, which was good in the end. Like.
And when you crossed the white line for the second half, was there a bit of tension? Were you snarling at each other, or was it a case of it was actually left in the dressing room, and when you got onto the pitch, no one would have known the difference?
Oh no, we leave it in the dressing room. That's the thing. We've had we've had digging matches on training fields, and we've had rows in dressing rooms, half time, before the match, after the match. But once it's left there, then that's it. And if anyone tries to take it on and try bring it up the next day or thing, then other players will say, here, it happened in the dressing room, whatever happened there, it stays there, you move on to the next game,
Okay, so Eamon didn't have to call in the UN or anything after the game?
No, he didn't, no. So after that, as I said, we got the result out of it, and then the following week we were back training as normal, which is our training sessions were sometimes harder than the games itself, because we'd have really good players and we'd be all getting stuck in. Our training matches didn't finish, say 6-2 or 8-0. They were always close, tight games, and there was hell for leather in the tackles. I'm always surprised that more people went injured leading up to the matches when we played on the Friday. But as I said, that's how intense our training sessions were.
When you look at the league now, do you see a lot of that Shelbourne team in what you see? Because I always feel that they were doing something in or around that time that a lot of teams are doing now. And okay, it went wrong off the pitch and they overstretched themselves. And look, we all know what happened then. But regards to training facilities or regards how they prepared and what Pat Fenlon did as a manager and the players, you all seem to be quite professional at that time, ate the right thing, lived the life of a professional footballer. And that is what was needed. We're seeing a lot of that now. Do you think that, a lot of what we're seeing now was what Shelbourne were doing then, and then unfortunately what happened and there was a bit of a gap before it started again?
Yeah, I think so. I think, as you said, professionalism, we were, a very professional club. We were well run in terms of on the pitch, in terms of look at the players being looked after, facilities, things like that. Probably be off the pitch in terms of financial awards, things that we weren't. The club itself hadn't got the structures right. And saying that, I mean, back then when we were winning the league trophy was something like 18 grand to win the league. Which probably wouldn't even cover a week's wages at Shells at the time. And yet to win the Setanta Cup, it was 150 or 180 grand. So the difference in the prize money, I think that, as I said, we won 5 league titles at Shells. If the prize money was where it is now at the moment, then Shells probably wouldn't be as, in that financial situation back then at the time, because the prize money was minimal. But or if you had someone that would have invested the way someone invested in Dundalk or in Rovers, then it mightn't have been as bad. But that was football back then. Ollie tried to do something and he had a dream. He wasn't far away from it. He put his own money in and brought it to as far as he could. Like, if you think of the players that were there was Wes Houlihan, Stewie Bourne, Alan Moore, Jay Bourne, Glenn Crowe. They all come in then. So, I mean, he wasn't a million miles away, man. I think if you look at the clubs now and the European results that we've been getting lately, and I know the structure of the European leagues is a lot different now, so you're not getting as strong a team. I often said, like, we played Deportivo that time, I'd have loved a weaker team. That way we might have got a result and got into that Champions League group stage. That's how close we were to it. But people saying, you're playing Deportivo, it's brilliant, the Spanish club. I was totally the opposite. I'd have loved to play, as I said, a much weaker team than that, but it wasn't to be. But you look now at the draws that the Irish clubs are getting, and we're on level par. We've always a great chance of progressing, and I can see an Irish club getting to that group stage of the Champions League in the next 5 years. I really can. I just think we're not a million miles away at the moment. As you say, that everything is a lot more professional now as well, in terms of every club is very professional. And you look at Rovers. I think if Rovers obviously will win the league this year, they could progress, and they're probably 1 or 2 players away from making that group stage, I think.
And how important is it that players kind of don't have to immediately jump across to England now if they have a good season or 2 here? It seems that with the European runs and all that, they can actually be contracted and given decent wages over here. And going back to a point that we made earlier on, there's actually a respectability about playing in the League of Ireland now. There's you can get into an Ireland squad. You can become a bit of a sports star. You don't have to go to England. How important is that?
Yeah, I think it's massive. Like, as you said, you look at Jack Bourne, played in England for a lot of his career, came back to Rovers, had a great career, and then gets the Ireland caps. And I think that shows you that there is that progress now, that players can they can play for League of Ireland clubs and get called into the Irish team. Lopez getting international caps with his country, miles away. It's not over here he's doing it, he's somewhere else. So they're getting the recognition there as well on that side of it. But it's great to see, but we need more of it. I think we need a lot more of it. It's not just 1 or 2 players. I think we have some quality players here that don't have to go to England. There should be the stepping stone of, right, he's good enough to play in the Irish team, bring him in. Jamie McGrath gone to Scotland and he gets called into the Irish team. Obviously he was good enough when he was here, if that's the case, because he only went over for a while. He wasn't there in Scotland long. He could easily made the step up. So players like that, I think, they're bringing the league on, and it's shown the respectability that the league deserves. But I think we need it's a lot more of it. I think we need a lot more players being called into the squads. You see players being called up from lower leagues in England, where I think our league over here is a better standard than what's coming from over in the lower leagues in England. And I think we can easily bring these players in now and give them caps, and they won't let you down because they're representing obviously their own league, as in the League of Ireland. They know what the Irish fans want, and they go in and represent the country on that level as well.
And I think many years ago, actually, we had a conversation and you said Welsh should be in the squad, and then he was, and look what he did. Before we talk about what's happening at the moment, I want to ask you about the best players you played with. Who were they and why?
Well, for obvious reasons, I always say Wes Houlihan's the best player I've played with.
Okay.
And it showed, I think, is he probably should have got a lot more caps than he did for Ireland. When I've seen Wesо coming in to the Shells team, small lad and jersey hanging off him, and the stuff he could do, and he was blind as a bat as well. He didn't get his contacts for a couple of years, and I think I've told the story many times where myself and Richie Baker and himself is in the car, and we're going down through Cabret, and he asked to stop at the chemist to get contacts. So we stopped at Cabret shops, and he ran into the butcher's, and the butcher had to tell him it was next door to the chemist that he had to go into. That's how blind Wezza was. But
wow.
The likes of him, Tony Sheridan, Stephen Gagan. The likes of Stephen Gagan was brilliant centre forward for me, because when you're passing the ball, it'll stick, but you can make a run off him, and you just give you that little pass. He wouldn't hold on to it for too long. I used to love playing alongside him. Obviously, Stewie Bourne, Jay Bourne, Glenn Crowe. I mean, there's so many talented players that I played with. Sherrow, you could go forward or back and see them throughout the years. And it's hard for me to say, well, he was good and he was good. But to me, the best out of a lot of them is Wes Houlihan. I think he's just a little bit ahead of Tony Sheridan for me. But I just think that, he's probably the best player I've played with.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many could argue that he was one of the best that the league ever produced. What about now? Shamrock Rovers last Friday night capped off their second title in a row. I don't think we can argue with them winning the title. They're the best team by a bit of a distance at the moment. What do you make of Rovers? How good a team and how good a club can they be? And I'm kind of reinforcing that point of club, because you know it yourself. You can have a very good team, but you mightn't necessarily have a good club around it, whereas they seem to have a bit of everything.
Yeah, they seem to have a good structure in place. I remember a couple of years ago, they were obviously got Roadstone, the training facilities done. They have a good youth set up now. They have a good first team. They're investing in their players. They have a good squad of players as well. And they seem to have, financially, they seem to be doing the right things and the right backers in there. And that's why I think they could really, progress and get in the Champions League. But I can also see them dominating for a few more years. I know people used to say that about Dundalk. Dundalk had a great stint for a while, but it just seems to be a lot of problems up there financially in that at the moment. Whether they're going to stay at the club or where the backers are going to go and someone else is going to come in. Rovers just seem to have a stability there, with their fans, with the other people that are putting money in as well in the background. And I just think with Bradley, since he's gone in, he's done a fantastic job. He's a good core group of players, and he's a good management team around him, and they seem to be progressing well year on year.
And
pardon me.
That's okay. And what about the teams around him? Because as you mentioned there, Shamrock Rovers could dominate, but do you think Bowes are kind of set up to stick with them? Dundalk, if they get good new owners, could potentially stick with them. Sligo Rovers hanging on in there in the top four. Derry, obviously they've got an injection of cash. Do you think that there could be enough challengers there to Shamrock Rovers that it doesn't become, and we've always feared this, haven't we, the League of Ireland becoming like Norway where Rosenborg dominate?
Yeah, and we said it over the years that you might have that one team that will do what Rosenborg do and have that sort of setup where they're winning the league year on, and they'll progress and they'll make the Champions League. And once one team makes the Champions League, especially if Rovers make it here, they could dominate for a long, long time because they'll have the investment and they'll have the money. In terms of Bowes being part-time, they might be able to sustain the same over the course of the season, the same what Rovers can do, because Rovers will have full-time players, they'll have a bigger squad and probably a more in-depth squad of quality than what Bowes can, because it's obviously being a part-time club. But Rovers then can pick and choose players as well from part-time teams, because everyone wants to play full-time football. It's something I'm sure every young player dreams of. Unfortunately, Bohs aren't offering full-time football at the moment, so it'll be hard to see if Bohs can stay with them. The likes of Dundalk, yeah, they can invest, and if they get investment in, can they be up there again? I don't know whether they have the structures in place to stay with Rovers over the next couple of years. Pats have done well this year. Derry, as you said, I think Derry are progressing. They're a club that seem to have a project in place where they look to progress year on year. But in terms of winning the league, I honestly can't see past Shamrock Rovers at the moment. I just think they've a lot of quality players, a lot of quality as in depth as well. Like they can chop and change. Probably the one thing that I think Rovers have been missing for the last 2 years, even though they've won the league, is being an out-and-out centre forward. I know Aaron Green is playing up there, but Aaron wouldn't be an out-and-out centre forward. They have, you look around the league, there hasn't been I haven't seen in the last while of a likes of a Gary Twigg or a Jay Bourne or a Glenn Crowe. So I know Bohs are doing all right at the moment with Ting up front.
Georgie, yeah.
God, I can't think of it.
Georgie Kelly, yeah.
Yeah, he's got 20 or something this year for them. But if you look at Georgie before he went to Bohs, he hadn't been scoring many goals. This year he's done great, and it's great to see that he's found a club that he can express himself and do well at. But there doesn't seem to be that many good centre forwards that are getting 20, 30 a year at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see if Rovers can get someone like that for next year.
I have a confession to make about Georgie Kelly, a guy I like, actually. I've met him a couple of times. I got curious about Conor Salmon when I was watching Georgie Kelly. The only reason, of course, is because they're both bald and they're both big strikers. They don't look like each other, that's right. Yeah. So I googled Conor Salmon, who's still playing away, and he's had a great career. Just before I let you go on, you manage a couple of clubs yourself as well. Would you have any interest in getting back into it at some stage, whether it's management or coaching in the League of Ireland, or are you happy enough now to work away in the day job and to kind of just do bits and pieces here and there?
Yeah, no, I'm happy working away in the day job. In terms of managing, no, I probably wouldn't go back into it. I like the coaching side of it. The management, probably, it's changed over the years. Like, I said, when Dermot and all were managing, they were given free reign they were the manager. The book stopped with them. They're the ones that recruited the players and brought the players in, and, the day-to-day running of the team. Now it seems to be changed. You have people in the background that are recruiting players, and they're telling you who should be playing and who shouldn't be playing, and you can't run a team like that. I mean, if you're going to do your coaching badges and you want to be manager, then they should allow you to manage. If the people in the background are telling you who should be playing or who shouldn't be playing, well, then they should go and do their coaching badges and manage the team. So I just don't think that works in that terms. The coaching wise, I enjoy the coaching. As I said, I'm doing a little bit of coaching at the moment, and I enjoy that because there's no hassle with it. There's no phone calls at 2 a.m. to tell you that he won't be there or this is happening, or the problems that come with it. As I say, with the management, it's 24/7. It's just constant. So no, I'm enjoying it. As I said, I'm enjoying watching the games. Cup final coming up now, Bohs and Pats. So I'll get to that and hopefully see Bohs lift the cup. So it would be nice to see them win a major trophy. As I said, it's been a long time coming, so it'd be great to see them eventually lift it.
And did you find it hard to adapt to the world of work, or throughout your footballing career, with the exception maybe of when you were playing at Shells, like you were probably doing day jobs there anyway, so maybe it wasn't so difficult to get used to it. How does that work?
No, it wasn't difficult for me because when I first started League of Ireland, I was part-time, so I was working and I was playing football. And then, as I said, come near the end of my career at Bohs, obviously Bohs financially was struggling at the time when Pat went and other players were gone. I wanted to stay at Bohs, so I became an amateur player, and I got a bit of work as well, so we could stay at Bohs and as I said, be an amateur player for Bohs and get a few quid outside of it. So yeah, I got used to it again of the worker mentality. So I enjoy, once I'm out doing something, I'm enjoying it. As I said, the job I have now is a good job, so I'm quite happy doing that and watching the football and enjoying Bohs, getting to the cup final and winning games.
Yeah, well, it just goes to show how much you love the club that you actually took an amateur deal to play for them. Yeah,
well, that's the thing, as I said, it's a club that I followed when I was growing up in the area. So as I said, when it came to it and there was financial issues, it made no sense. It made sense to me to stay there and go as an amateur player. Although I had to fight with the FEI to get amateur status, and that's why when I went for the testimonial, Frank Gavin told me no, because I was an amateur player. I couldn't have him after 20 odd years of playing as a pro. So that was the argument with them, but I didn't mind because I had a benefit game and I enjoyed me few years at Bohs, and we won plenty of trophies, so I couldn't complain in the end. And as I said, now I'm looking forward to the cup final. We won it in 2008, and now Bohs are back in it this year against Pats. So please God, fingers crossed that Bohs win that and get into Europe as well through that winning that trophy.
And when you were playing for Shells, did you find it hard to play against Bohs?
No, not at all. No, as I said, when I played for Shells, I was 100% committed to Shells, and wanted to win trophies. And I remember myself and Kevin Hunt had won two league titles each, and he'd done an interview with the two of us, and the two of us were going for our third league title. So at the start of that year, I remember I think it was Stephen Kennedy asked me to sign for Bohs. Unfortunately, I'd signed already for Shells. I was asked 3 times to sign for Bohs throughout the years, but I signed for Shells, and it paid off because I won 5 league titles there. And then I eventually did go to Bohs, and I won more league titles there. So, I never needed motivating to play against any team or anything like that. I was always committed, as I said, 100%. Whatever team I played for, I wanted to win trophies regardless, And the teammates I was with were good lads, and they all wanted to win trophies. If you think of the players that I played with, as I said, throughout my career, I mean, it's most of those players, it'd be hard to pick a starting 11 out of all those players that I played with. Yeah.
I'm just trying to picture that row in the dressing room at Lansdowne Road still. You're a brave man if you took on Dave Rogers or Jamie Harris, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Them two were fighting each other.
Really? Who won?
Them two were at each other. I think it was a draw. We'd say it was a draw at this stage.
That was MMA before MMA was really popular.
Yeah, exactly. There was plenty of digs thrown throughout my career at Shells and at Bohs, but it was always for the right reasons that we had our rows, as I said, and it always paid off dividends. We always went on and won the next league game or won the league or whatever it is that we were aiming to do that year.
Yeah. Owen, you've been really generous with your time. It has been a delight to talk to you. Hopefully we'll talk to you again soon. We might get into the business of analysing games and talking about the current stuff. Today we kind of went back into a bit of your history, which I always find interesting with players, especially players like you, who, as we said at the start, started in one generation of the League of Ireland and ended in another. And you saw so much change throughout your time and did so many great things, and you experienced highs and lows like everyone else. But I'm sure it was always interesting, even if it wasn't always good. Sometimes it was bad, but mostly good. And I think I don't think you could have any complaints about your career. I think you got an awful lot out of it.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. I said I was never, well, knock on wood, I was never injured until the latter end of my career when the hamstrings, but I was 36, 37 at that stage, and you expect then to start going. So I've had a lucky career in that sense, enjoyed every minute of it. And then with the players I've played with, you make so many friends out of the game. Even players I played against, as much as you might have hated them on the day, when you meet them now and you talk about, games past and games present, it's always good to catch up with them. So yeah, really, really enjoyed it.
Sorry, one last question. Who did you hate when you played, but who do you like now?
Who did I hate? Pat Dolan.
Oh, really? Okay.
Nah, I remember playing a match, and I went to take a throw in down in Dundalk, and Pat Dolan wouldn't allow me. He stood right behind me, so I couldn't step back to take it. And my boot sort of stood in his foot. He said I kicked him in the shin, and he rolled on the ground a little bit. So I met him there. I think it was last year, the year before I met him.
Yeah.
I gave him a lift, and we were talking about that and reminiscing on it. But as I said, Pat was brilliant for the game. Absolutely. At the time, used to hate him because he was obviously Pat's mad. I was at Shells at the time, and there was a big rivalry between Pats and Shells. And when I met him there a couple of years ago, we had a great chat about it. And it's great to catch up with players like that and people like that throughout my career.
Yeah, I remember himself and Nutsy had a bit of a rivalry as well. And one night in Turner's Cross, they had a bit of a pop off each other after a game. But again, these are the things that happen around sport. I'm sure if they met now,
I remember
they'd be fine.
Ollie Bourne fighting with Roddy Collins, throwing digs at Roddy Collins before a match. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was talking to Roddy on the stairs. Who was there? Terry Everson, I think it was there with me, and we were chatting away. Next minute, I just get pushed out of the side, and Ollie Bourne starts throwing digs at Roddy Collins. Poor Roddy didn't know what was happening. All because someone told Ollie that Roddy said something on the radio about Shelbourne, and that was it. All hell broke loose.
Yeah, he always followed up as well. I got a few phone calls from Ollie about things he thought he heard, but actually once he got his screaming out of the way and you said, well, actually, Ollie, this is what was said, he was calm. Then you'd meet him at the ground the next night and I'd nearly be trembling going into Talca Park. But he'd be fine. He'd be like, welcome along. Great to see you all. Yeah, absolutely.
I completely. You could tell stories on Ollie all day. I mean, I've seen him jump onto the pitch, grabbing photographers and swinging them by the neck. And I've seen Saddam Hussein's solicitor land a helicopter in Talca Park and Ollie bringing him over and introducing him to me. And, you know, it was a baffling word, absolutely baffling word when Ollie was about, but absolutely brilliant he was to me, like, you know, throughout my career. And he sorely missed it, I tell you, throughout the league. You know, he didn't let the FEI away with anything either, or anyone, you know, in terms of the rules. He knew the rules inside out. I think he knew them better than the FEI, to be honest with you.
Yep.
And, you know, you'd always see Ollie going to court somewhere along the line or having a pop, or he kept the league interesting, to say the least.
That's very true. And again, we could have a separate and long conversation about Ollie Byrne. Owen, that's where we leave it. But thank you very much for joining us on the extratime.com Monday podcast, and we hope to chat to you again soon.
No problem, Oisin. Thanks very much.
Fantastic stuff from Owen Heary. I know I said, and just before I let you go, about 15 minutes before the interview actually ended, but he just has so many good stories to tell, and it's always good to hear from him. And we'll have him on in an analysis role in the next while. But I just love reliving those days of Shelbourne in Europe and Ollie Byrne, and even his days at Kilkenny City and Home Farm were very interesting to hear about. And like, he played under and with some absolute icons. By the way, there is a great documentary, and I think I have mentioned it before, but if you can find it, do, and absolutely 100% sit down and listen to it, and really listen to it. It's one of these ones that you really have to pay attention to when you're listening, but it's a really easy listen. It's great, for example, if you're going on a long journey. But I think it's called Never Ignored, the story of Shelbourne under Ollie Byrne, or something like that. It was produced by Owen Brennan, my former News Talk colleague, and it's absolutely fantastic. Definitely worth a listen. Still to come, Kilmacud Crokes hurler Fergal Whitely on getting through to a Dublin senior hurling final with Crokes, where they'll play first-time finalists Nafina in a couple of weeks' time. First though, it's Tom O'Connor of extratime.com and his roundup of how the Irish are getting on in the UK. Tom, how are you?
Not so bad, Oisin. Not so bad.
Good. It has been a very good couple of days for the Republic of Ireland women's team. They beat Finland 2-1 away in a World Cup qualifier, having only been beaten 1-0 by Sweden at home a couple of days before. And I say only being beaten 1-0 by Sweden because that is an achievement in itself. And of course, this group might come down to goal difference. A lot of the players did well for their clubs over the weekend. So you might start with that.
Yeah, look, I suppose the top story from the women's game in England today was the FA Cup semi-finals, and we had Irish interest in the Arsenal-Brighton semi-final as Katie McCabe took on Megan Connolly, and Katie McCabe's Arsenal side beat Brighton 3-0 to reach the finals of the women's FA Cup. So look, a good weekend for Katie McCabe. And then in the championship, Leanne Kiernan scored twice as Liverpool beat Lewis 2-0, and obviously Niamh Fahey was in defence for Liverpool as well, so a clean sheet there. Also in the league, Rihanna Jarrett, she played an hour for London City Lionesses, but unfortunately she came out on the wrong side of a 1-0 loss. So we had positives from Katie McCabe and obviously goal scoring of Leanne Kiernan and the defence of Niamh Fahey. And then on the flip side of that, obviously Megan Connolly, look, it's a massive achievement to be playing in a semi-final of such a prestigious competition. She obviously came out on the wrong side of it, but like I said, it's a massive achievement to be playing at such a stage. And then Rihanna Jarrett, she got an hour, but it wasn't to be. And I see Tyler Toland was also named. Celtic also progressed in the Scottish Cup. Now, Tyler Toland was named on the bench. She didn't actually feature. But again, look, we have Irish interest in both Scottish and English Cups as they reach towards the latter end of their season. So look, it's good to see.
Well, I guess it's like the 80s all over again. Lots of Irish interest in the latter stages of the FA Cup. Let's talk about the Premier Division. I guess Bamidele is the headline there.
Yeah, look, we saw a fantastic header. Unfortunately, wasn't to be, as his Norwich side slumped to another defeat, this time obviously Leeds. But I mean, Bamidele was playing kind of an unfamiliar position. He was playing probably more wide on the left than he would have been used to, and he's up against Rafinha, who's one of Leeds' top players, and obviously just there a couple of weeks ago became a Brazil international. He is, I suppose, because Leeds have been gone under the radar this season, he is somewhat of and his transfer fee was quite low in comparison to a lot of the bigger deals. Rafinha is still somewhat unknown in the Premier League, but look, as the season progresses, people are going to see lots more of Rafinha. So Bamidele's display today, while Rafinha scored a goal, there will be players who will come out where Rafinha has got a lot better than Owen Bamidele did today. So look, a defeat, but on the flip side of that, he got a goal and he did okay against Rafinha, like I say, a full Brazil international. So take the positives, bank from it, and look, hopefully he'll get to start again for Norwich next week, which Adam Idah possibly won't. Adam Idah come on as a sub for the last 15 minutes again. It seems to be that no matter Norwich are not getting a great start to the season, but no matter what changes have been made, he just doesn't seem to be getting the luck in just yet. I know Daniel Farke spoke to I think it was David Sneyd during the week about the two Irish lads and their development at Carrow Road. So hopefully, look, hopefully we will see more of Idah as the season progresses. But look, this weekend was more about Bamidele.
I think what he said about Idah was that basically he just didn't get the training minutes he's needed in the last while, and maybe that has held him back. So hopefully the fact that he's actually he's getting some game time, means that he's getting closer to potentially starting. And look, whatever Norwich have done this season, it hasn't worked. So look, let's hope there will be more game time for Bamidele and Idah.
Yeah, hopefully. Now look, at centre back on the international scene, he's got a lot of competition. Look, we see Shane Duffy is back in the Brighton. He didn't play last weekend, but was back in the Brighton team this weekend. They were 2-0 down against Liverpool and staring down the barrel of defeat, came back and drew 2-2. So look, that was a great result for Brighton, doing very well this year. Also playing in defence, but maybe in a team not doing so well yet until the splash open the checkbook at the January transfer window with Newcastle. Kieran Clark played again, but they lost 3-0 to Chelsea. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Newcastle in the coming weeks. But look, Kieran Clark's playing regularly for them, not getting the results as of yet, but we don't know what's going to happen with Newcastle in the coming months. Moving down then to just from the bottom of the Premier League to the top of the Championship, Marc Rovers kept his fourth clean sheet in a row as Bournemouth continued their, I won't say it's march to the title. It's very early days for that yet, but I mean, they're looking very, very impressive so far. They're the only unbeaten side left in the English Football League. So it augurs well for them. A man that we've spoken about before, captain on the 21 level, Gavin Kilkenny, he got 45 minutes and he was booked during that, so he came off at half-time. He was replaced by Ben Pearson. But look, there's a lot of competition in the Bournemouth midfield. You have a lot of quality players there, so the fact that even he got the nod of the manager to start, it bodes well. From the yellow card, they're in a good run of form, so it's probably a tactical decision more so than anything else. Another side doing very well are Swansea as of late. So Ryan Manning, we've spoken about him before, getting a couple of assists. He got another one over the weekend. They won 3-0 against Peterborough, for whom Jack Taylor and Sam Smodjic were playing. We've seen Jack Taylor, obviously, for Irish under-21s. Another player we've seen at that level is Michael Obafemi, who is at Swansea now after signing from Southampton. He came on as a sub with half an hour to go. So look, he's making inroads into that Swansea team as well, who are looking that there could be a promising season ahead for them as well. Also in the Championship, then we had Richard Keogh had another clean sheet for Blackpool as they beat Sheffield United 1-0, which was no mean achievement considering obviously Sheffield United came down last season after doing well in the Premier League the season before. And John Egan's and Enda Stevens both played 90 minutes for Sheffield United, so a lot of Irish interest there. Then we had Scott Hogan, who hasn't been in squads as of late, but he's still capped Irish international. He scored for Birmingham against Middlesbrough. And former Irish manager Mick McCarthy's Cardiff, they were 3-0 down against Michael O'Neill's Stoke, and they came back to draw 3-3. And Mark McGuinness, Irish under-21 centre-half, was playing for Cardiff. We had Alan Bryan and Shawnee Maguire playing for Preston as they beat Luton 2-0. And then also keeping up the Cork connection, we had former Cork City defender Sean McLaughlin come on at half-time for Hull. Now, they were beaten 1-0 by Coventry, but it's good to see him getting minutes again. And I was watching the interview he did with the Hull media team after the game, and he was very... I suppose, look, they're Hull are on a bad run at the minute. Grant McCann, the manager, was also interviewed by the media team, and they're both kind of talking about working as hard, just putting the head down and working hard and hoping to get the result. Now, hopefully, they're speaking about a change in formation and stuff, so maybe that could see McLaughlin starting the next few couple of games for Hull. And, look, we could see his career might take off in England. We know he played last year on loan up in Scotland, so maybe this could be the catalyst for his English-based career to take off. Then we had, speaking about managers and interviews, we had Blackburn beat Derby 2-1, and they had a number of injuries in defence. So Blackburn manager Tony Mowbray singled out Darragh Lenihan for special praise. And look, he's a stalwart in the Blackburn defence at the minute. On the flip side of that, Derby just don't have the same. They obviously have their 12-point deduction, but off the field they don't have the same kind of stability, I suppose, as Blackburn. But despite that, we still saw Festi Abasele come on as a sub, so they're still developing young players coming through. Also at the weekend, we saw Fulham hammer West Brom. Alexander Mitrovic got a hat-trick. So disappointing result on the field for West Brom. In terms of Irish viewing, we had Callum Robinson and Jason Malumbi both come on as second half subs, but they couldn't turn the tide. Though on the flip side, off the field and away from the field, I see Dara O'Shea is making progress in his return from injury. So fingers crossed there are green shoots in terms of his return to both West Brom, and then obviously hopefully from an Irish viewpoint, it'd be nice to see him back in a West Brom jersey. It'd be nice to see him back in an Irish jersey as well soon enough. Then up in the SPL, we had a couple of Irish players playing against each other. We had Cavan's Killian Sheridan, who's playing for Dundee now. They played St Mirren and they beat them 1-0. Now, we spoke about St Mirren having lots of Irish players before. They have the 5 Irish players now, obviously with Jamie McGrath. There's only 4 of them played at the weekend, but they were beaten, like I say, by Killian Sheridan's Dundee. And speaking of lots of Irish players in a team, League One's Portsmouth, Gavin Bazunu kept another clean sheet. Sean Williams, Marcus Harness and Ronan Curtis were also playing in the team. Ronan Curtis got an assist. So we spoke before about Irish supporters having second teams, maybe in Scotland. If anyone's looking for a second team to have in the English Football League, Portsmouth have 4 Irish players, so it could be of interest to anybody there. And dropping down into League 1, Portsmouth are in, and staying in League 1 we have Warren O'Hora, obviously ex-Bows, and Peter Cuso from Swords. Their MK Dons side beat Crewe 4-1, and in the same league Fleetwood drew 3-3 at Wickham. Former international winger Anthony Pilkington played, and also current international winger Daryl Horgan got an assist for Adebayo Akinfenwa. Also in League 1, we saw Rotherham hammer Sunderland 5-1, and it was one former Irish winger against a current international winger, Aidan McGeady, up against Chidozie Ogbene, and Aidan McGeady actually got sent off on a second yellow for fouling Ogbene, as his Sunderland side, like I say, were defeated 5-1. For Rotherham, Kieran Sadlier, ex-Cork City and Sligo, came on as a sub, and so did Josh Coyote. Josh Coyote got an assist in the game. Also in League 1, and speaking of wingers, we've James McLean scored again for Wigan. He's on fire there as they beat Burton 2-0. So Will Keane obviously played for Wigan as well, and on the Burton side, you had Thomas O'Connor and Conor Shaughnessy. Then, just to finish off, in League 2, we had a 5-0 win for Leyton Orient against Hartlepool. All 5 goals, Aaron Drinan had played a part in them. Aaron Drinan scored a hat-trick and had 2 assists. And the assistant manager for Leyton Orient is former Dundalk, Shamrock Rovers and Drogheda forward Joe Gallen. So just to tie up a link and put it all together.
Okay, is that it, Tom? I said, is that it? Like, you only gave me 30 seconds. I think you've been talking for a good 10 minutes odd.
That's the end of my Shakespearean soliloquy.
Your one-man show. I think from here on in, maybe just pick the highlights.
Yes, I don't know whether I've lost listeners from the podcast.
No, because, well, firstly, I'm perfectly capable of losing listeners myself from this podcast. I don't need anyone else to do it for me. Secondly, like, it's just good to keep track, and you're saving people from searching for this information themselves.
Just on that, if there is anybody during the week, I know I only appear on the podcast at the start of the week, but if there's anybody during the week who wants to keep an eye on it, there is a fantastic Twitter account called Irish Abroad. So it's at
Hold on a second. I've had to listen to you for 10 minutes when I could have just checked out this Twitter account.
You wouldn't have got exactly that level of detail, but
I'm joking, of course. I'm joking. Come here, give us the detail of this Twitter account.
It's at Irish_abroad, and it's top quality, to be fair. I have nothing to do with it. I have nothing but admiration for the amount of detail and effort on it. So anybody and it has both, it's between itself and Barry Landy's Emerald Exiles. Any Irish player playing in a professional league across the world, if at any stage during the week somebody thinks, oh, what about such and such, those two, at Irish_abroad or at Emerald Exiles, are both amazing, absolutely amazing resources for anybody to look at. So yeah, I would wholeheartedly recommend anybody who's looking at Irish players abroad to tune in during the week and check into any of those. Like I say, I've absolutely no affiliation, nothing to either of those two accounts except admiration and praise.
Okay, just before I let you go, Tom, Dundalk taking on Drogheda on Thursday night. It's a huge game, isn't it?
Look, it's massive, Oisin. They're down there. It's crazy. One week you're reading about teams being in European fights. The next minute they're in a relegation fight. Next minute somebody's back in Europe. It's probably one of the most exciting Premier divisions that I've seen in years now. I know people are going to say, well, how, what do you mean it's exciting? Shamrock Rovers have won the league by a country mile and a half. Pats have already qualified for Europe. But down the bottom, Longford there have been much, while Longford's points total is a gap, there are teams who have been much, much, much worse than Longford in the Premier Division, and even sometimes stayed up. Longford have been very, very, very unlucky. So the quality across the Premier Division this year, yes, absolutely. Shamrock Rovers, there's no denying that they were the best team and there was a gap back. But beyond that, there's a little bit left to run in this league. And like you say, look, during the week, Thursday's going to be a massive game. And Drogheda, I think they have, is it 4 games in 9 days? Something, just the way things run. So look, it's going to be the next week, 10 days are going to tell an awful lot over the relegation playoff position.
Okay, Tom O'Connor of extratime.com. Thank you very much for joining us on the extratime.com Monday podcast. I think it's fair to say you ran a marathon of Irish names there.
I hope just it wasn't. I hope it was interesting to some. Maybe not to all, but to some.
That's pretty much the mantra of this podcast. I hope it's interesting to some. Thanks, Tom.
Not at all. I should mind yourself.
This is the extratime.com Monday podcast. As we speak, we're on a very wet pitch in Parnell Park where Kilmacud Crokes have beaten Cuala in the go-ahead Dublin Senior Hurling Championship semi-final. Fergal Whitely, you were named the TG Cahir Man of the Match. First of all, how does it feel to be back in another final, because you've had a bit of a wait?
Yeah, look, it's a few years now. I was just saying over there how just the young lads this year that have come in, they're coming off the back 3 minor county finals, so they've really given the team a lift this year, and you saw that out there how brilliant they all played, and the lads off the bench too. So we're delighted to be back in a county final, and we know there's one more job to do in 2 weeks' time.
A lot of those players might be young. There are some older ones like yourself, or well, experienced ones like yourself, I should say, but they stepped up and they adapted to winter hurling today, didn't they? I mean, it was a battle at times and they never took a step back.
Yeah, they really did, especially when the rain started falling in the start of the second half. You saw the rucks forming, and the pitch was kind of digging up a bit, so it was kind of that 3rd, 4th, 5th ball that was being won, and you saw the how vicious the tackling was out there. There was lots of turnovers, and we're just delighted to get over the line.
For those of us who have never played in a high intensity match like that, try and explain the difference between height of summer hurling and height of winter hurling, because they're both as intense but a different kind of intense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I suppose, like I said there, just it's kind of the 3rd, 4th and 5th ball, rather than on a nice summer's day you might get the first one into your hand. But we knew that, and I think in comparison to the match 6 weeks ago, and we also played Cuala in the league over the summer, they were completely different games, and we really targeted that today, and we know it'll be like that again in 2 weeks' time.
You've been tested at times this season, but you've always come through it, and maybe in the 4th quarter you pulled away from teams. This was the first time that it was really 60 minutes toe to toe, even though the scoreline might suggest otherwise. How big a bonus is that to have had that kind of victory going into a final against Nafina, who we know can do that because we've seen them do it this season as well?
Yeah, like it's good to get challenges, but yeah, I suppose we've been very focused on ourselves this year and how our own performance, look, it was good to get a challenge, and I know Nafina have had good battles too to this point, so we're looking forward to the match in 2 weeks' time.
Is it a big boost to get into a final having beaten one of the big rivals and a team who have done so much in the last couple of years within Dublin, Leinster and the All-Ireland series? Yeah,
look, it's good, but look, we beat Cuala in a semi-final 2 years ago and we didn't get over the line, so look, we know there's another day, and we know there's another job to do to lift the cup, so yeah, we're just looking forward. Yeah.
Fergal, well done today. Congratulations.
Thanks, Oisin. Right.
Fergal Whitely speaking to me following the Dublin Senior Hurling Championship semi-final win against Cuala for Kilmacud Crokes. Cuala, big rivals of Crokes, so that's a massive win for them. Cuala have been wonderful champions, by the way. They're a wonderful team, they're a wonderful club, and there is no doubt they will be back. But what they have done for Dublin hurling over the last number of years cannot be overstated. They won 2 All-Ireland club titles, and I think they made other clubs believe that they could do it, and then they raised their standards and have come to meet Cuala. Of course, they probably can't claim to have met Cuala until they go on and have the kind of success that Cuala have. But yes, Cuala, yesterday wasn't their day, but they have been brilliant over the years, and no doubt they will be back. Another interesting game, by the way, over the weekend was Dromore against Trillick in the Tyrone Football Championship semi-final. Dromore overcoming them. Bit of a surprise result. But what was very surprising was that on the TV analysis, it was shown on RTE, Enda McGinley wore just a jumper and a sports coat with no gloves or hat or scarf or anything. Either side of him was Sean Kavanagh and Damien Lawler, and they had gloves and scarves and big coats on, but Enda was standing there like it was an autumn day as opposed to a bleak winter night. So kudos to him for being a double hard man. And that's it from me. We're back next Friday with the extratime.com Friday podcast. Remember, we'd love to hear from you on @ExtraTime News, or you can get me directly on @Oisin Langan. Don't forget, if you can't get to any of the SSE or Tricity League matches tonight, extratime.com has you covered. And tomorrow night, that's Tuesday night, Waterford host Derry. You can watch that game like you can every other game in the league on LOI TV. You can listen to it, by the way, through BBC Radio Foyle Digital. And I'm not sure if WLR FM have live commentary, but they certainly have updates. They do all Waterford's away games, and I think they do some of the home games. Not quite sure how it works, but anyway, they'll have coverage of some sort, and they're actually one of the stations who really get behind their local team. And they don't just do it when they're in the Premier Division. As you're aware, Waterford have had hard times, and WLR have always been there for them. They've always given them coverage. That's it from me. I'll talk to you Friday. Have a good week.